Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated Hope, Health, and Human Services Partnership. We're presenting today a wonderful, exciting webinar on depression in teenagers. We are so excited this morning that we're going to be talking about something that is more prevalent now, I believe, during this pandemic than it has ever been. Um, and the silver lining to that problem or to that cloud is that we do have a plethora of skilled social workers and other clinicians who can help us through this. And we thank God for that. We want to give recognition to our convention leadership, Dr. Jerry Young, our convention president, Dr. Alvin Love, the chair of our federal faith-based development initiative, Dr. Michael Miner, the national director of NBC USA liaison to U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And we are so happy today that Dr. Miner is our, I'm going to call him our co-producer. I'm going to click through some once we turn it over to Sister Bettina Campbell, who is our mental health coordinator for our Hope Ministry. But Dr. Miner is going to help us click through some of these screens. You might not see his face this morning, but what he is actually preparing to do is very important. I am wearing a T-shirt that you cannot see yet because he's working on the camera, but it says All of Us Research Program. I'm going to stand up so you can see it. I put it on top of my professional attire. And the back of it, I'm going to let Dr. Miner read you what it says.
The future of health begins with you.
The future of health begins with you. Something that we want to talk about a little bit today is the All of Us Research Program, which is an NIH initiative that is working to get 1 million participants to be involved in a research study that is going to help hopefully change the face of medicine for everybody in our country, but particularly for people of color, because oftentimes we have not been included in research. Sometimes we have gotten, for lack of a better word, I'll say the short end of the stick when it comes to research. But providers and researchers now realize that medicine needs to be more precise. The example we like to use in our Hope Ministry is about eyeglasses. Everybody who I see on my Zoom screen, Sister Bettina and Sister Marjorie Evans, all three of us, we have on eyeglasses. But I would venture to say that if we switched glasses, there'd be some problems because our prescription is precise for us. So our optometrists and ophthalmologists get it right, but we want all our providers to get it right. Blood pressure medicine, cancer treatments, all of those things, even treatment that we give for mental illnesses. So I'm not going to talk anymore right now about precision medicine and all of us, but we do want to keep that in our mind as we go forward, understanding depression in teenagers. Again, this is your National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated Hope Health Ministry presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Sister Bettina Campbell, who is our mental health coordinator. She is a licensed master's level social worker who hails from Flint, Michigan. The Lord blessed us that she now lives in the South. She is a member of the Hill Hernando Baptist Church, where Dr. Michael Miner is the under shepherd, and she is going to conduct this presentation for us. Sister Campbell, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us this morning. We have a very educational and informative session for you this morning, and our presenter will be Sister Marjorie Evans, who is a resident of Flint, Michigan, has many years of working as a social worker in the hospital setting for families and for friends, and also in the community with her own private practice. She is a licensed clinician, and she has a wonderful message for us today. One of the things that she wanted me to be sure to tell you is, we're going to pause for just a second for you to get your pencil and your paper if you don't already have it, because she's going to make this very interactive for us. And we want you to be able to have notes that you can keep with you once this show is over, although we know it will be posted on Facebook and also on YouTube. We still want you to be able to have your own information with you that you can share with your friends and your family, and you can take time to digest it and make sure that you understand it. And as we go along with that same paper and pencil, or put it in the chat, questions that you might have for her that you brought with you this morning, or that may arise from information that she shares with you. So again, I think I've talked long enough for people to be able to get their pencil and their paper so that we can be ready to engage with Sister Evans. And I'm going to now turn the session over to her. Marjorie, welcome this morning.
Yes, I'm here, Sister Campbell, and thank you so much for inviting me. I like to talk about the issue that we're going to be discussing today, because I think it's very important for us to keep our eye on the prize, and the prize is going to be a big picture. We're going to be talking today about how depression affects us, affects teenagers, and what we can do about it. Now, depression is a disease. I'm not sure if you recognize that, but I wanted you to know that it is a disease. It's a disease that cripples mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Now, I would say that's a lot. That's definitely a lot. And we're going to look at today, we're going to look at the big picture and the little picture today. And the reason why I want you to take note is because some of the things that I'm going to tell you, you're going to be able to take it home and look around at your situation and see if anything applies. The big picture, the little picture, as I call it, is the fact that we have been able to use these skills in the past and also use them in the present. And here's the little picture. The little picture says, we think we are treating depression. That's the little picture. We deny that teens have depression. We ignore the symptoms of depression and suicidal ideation. Now remember, this is the little picture. We may not know the symptoms of depression or suicidal ideations. Then depression is not as bad as the depression of teens is not as bad as adults. We think of that as sometimes a way to say, oh, well, you know, the children don't have any bills, they don't have any mortgages, they don't have any car notes. So we're the ones that's depressed, adults, if there's any depression to be had. We're not supporting our teens in a developmental appropriate ways, believe it or not. Now, this is new statistics that just came out. And please, don't take offense to it. Let's just listen. And today we're going to have a conversation because I believe in talking with each other. And like Sister Campbell said, I'm going to want you to write down some things. But after this little picture we just got finished looking at, and I called it little for a specific reason, because I wanted you to take note that it's a small picture. Also, now we're going to talk about the big picture. The big picture is going to talk about the present and the future, what we need to be doing in the future to help our teens. And of course, I'm going to give you some statistics about it because I think you need to know what we're up against. Now, we need to speed it up. What I mean by that is we have to begin to address our teens' depression. We can't keep pulling it off, saying, no, go to your room. Oh, it's not that bad. I'm the one that's depressed. I got all the headaches. So we can't do that any longer. We have to have more awareness about the signs and symptoms, because when I told you that depression is a disease means it has signs and symptoms. So if it has signs and symptoms, we can prove to you that it's going to affect you in a negative kind of way. Take the disease of depression in teens seriously. Please take it seriously. We need to do that, because if we don't take it seriously, believe it or not, we're going to have a lot more suicidal cases. Suicide is a sign of depression. You got to know that. Yes, we have signs and symptoms, but suicide is a sign of depression, and it can be in all the depressions. You know, it's many different kinds of depressions, but it can be a sign in each depression, or it doesn't have to be. Some people get depressed and they don't have any suicidal thoughts. And we're happy to know that they don't have any suicidal thoughts. But we got to know the signs of depression in terms of suicide. Many teens who have depression, they have been depressed more than half their lives. Now, that might sound strange to you, but if I got a teenager 13 years old, and when they reach 13, they start really exhibiting depressive symptoms, needing isolation or needing some type of hospitalization, as well as needing medication, that tells me that most likely they've been depressed half of their lives. Now, 13 is 6.5 years they've been depressed. That's half their lives. So you would say to yourself, well, why is she telling me this when that's a 6-year-old? But 6-year-olds can be traumatized too. Things can happen in the family that can traumatize young children as well. And they grow up as teenagers, and you might not see the effects of it until they get about 13 or 14 years old. So don't let that scare us. We just know we got to work on it. We got to take this big picture that we have today, and we got to make this so big that when we are when our family member or our friend or our church member is affected by depression, we don't take it lightly. Okay, I'm getting some questions. Is that what I'm supposed to do, Sister Campbell?
Oh, no, that's just a poll that Dr. Miner is doing.
Oh, okay, no problem. All right. So I'm going to finish up with the big picture. And the big picture says that we have to look at teen health. Teen health in the ways that we talked about it earlier, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And we have to really look at the chronic stress that teens are under during this time. We have to help as a family. We can't no longer just shrug it off and say, oh, well, they'll get over it. We have to do it as a family. We have to help as a family. We have to get help as a family. We have to get treatment as a family. And we have to focus on feelings. How many people are, and you can just hold your answers, but this is just me posing you a question. How many people want to focus on their feelings? How many of us think that feelings is a large part of what's going on with depression? Well, I'm going to show you today how we have to look at our feelings and how we have to encourage our teens to start sharing their feelings. And when you start talking about sharing feelings, what you're talking about is the fact that you have to have a relationship. People don't share their feelings with you not unless they have some type of relationship. I'm talking about deep feelings. I'm not talking about negative feelings. Sometimes people share their negative feelings. They don't have to have any kind of relationship with you. But I'm talking about feelings that are close to them, are within them, and feelings that make sure that the person lets you know just exactly what's going on with them. So we're going to discuss that a little bit today. But I know I got to move on because I could spend a whole day on feelings, and I don't want to take up that kind of time. But I do want to give you some statistics and just show you how things have, how depression declined and how it increased over the last 10 years. And in 1999 to 2007, depression declined and even suicidal behavior declined. But at the end of 2007 to 2016, depression and suicidal ideations increased 56%. Now that's a lot. So I want you to think about just how much you think, just what happened in those 10 years, 8 to 10 years, what happened? What do you think happened? Now, the reason why I wanted to give you some statistics is because sometimes we like to know exactly what's going on. And those numbers kind of let you know that it's happening, that things are increasing. Now, before I move on, who do you think commits suicide? Well, that's a strange question. Well, I'm going to talk to you about the adults for a minute, and then I'm going to go back to the teens. White men, if a white man says that he's suicidal and I'm working with him, I'm going to take many precautions. I'm going to make sure he's safe, and I'm going to make sure he's hospitalized. Because white men kill themselves. They did it in the Depression by jumping out windows and shooting themselves in the head, and they still doing it. Black men are beginning to kill themselves. Black men didn't kill themselves before, but they're beginning to. And one way they do it is by eating themselves to death. Believe it or not. Some things I'm going to say to you are going to be pretty frank today. So please understand that so that you can get the depth of this depression. And when I say eating themselves to death, I mean becoming diabetic and also having high blood pressure. Now, those are two diseases that now we would say that we are able to get under control. And we don't have to die from diabetes and high blood pressure. But Black men don't see it that way. Black men see it like, okay, I'm going to take this medicine, but I'm not going to take it too long because it's going to affect my sexual interaction. So Black men are dying from what I call eating too much. Because if they was not eating too much, we're talking about the fact that they would be able to have their blood pressure and their diabetes under control. So I want you to know that, because we do have in our race the highest high blood pressure problems as well as the diabetic problems. Now, Black women, they just, if they're going to kill themselves, they just going to take an overdose and that's it. It's not going to be a whole lot of too much talking about it. So we have to make sure we keep talking to Black women. Now, white women, what do white women do? White women call up their girlfriends and say, hey, girl, I just want to tell you what he did. I just want to say he's going out with the maid. He's having a baby by the girl down the street. And then they go to Barnes and Nobles. You familiar with Barnes and Nobles? They have plenty of books on self-help. And that's what white women do. White women read books, go to classes, take all kinds of seminars to make sure that they can reduce their depression. And guess what? They live longer than anybody else. Longer than anybody else. So that tells us that as adults, we need to take some notes. But back at the teenagers, the teens don't do what we say. They do what we do. So if I'm telling you about suicide in adults, and you're that person's mother, that teen's mother, and you kill yourself, most likely one of your kids are going to kill themselves. Not only that, most likely it's going to be 5 generations where individuals in your family are going to kill themselves. Your grandchildren, your children, your great-grandchildren, somebody will kill themselves. Now, I didn't believe this, but I worked in the hospital for 18 years on a psychiatric unit. And in the 18 years, I treated some generations. And I saw generations of family members come to the hospital where their mother had killed themselves or their father had killed themselves, and then they were going to kill themselves. Because see, suicide is a solution to a problem. It just happens to be a permanent solution, but it's still a solution to a problem. So if I'm going to show you that this is the solution to the problem, then hey, I might as well do it too. You did it. You killed yourself and solved your problem. I'll kill myself and solve my problem. So that's something we really have to watch. We really have to watch that. And as African Americans, we were not killing ourselves. So we have to start talking to each other more about our feelings. Feelings is the key. So, let's go over some symptoms and signs and symptoms of depression. And this is where Sister Campbell asked you to get out your pencil and your paper. And she wanted you to write down. I'm going to tell you that there's going to be, when you look at depression, there's usually 8 types of signs or symptoms. And I want you to tell me at least 5 of them. Now, I'm sure that you've been familiar with depression before. This is not the first time. And you might have heard or even known people who've been depressed, and therefore you knew what kinds of things they were going through. So maybe you can write down all 8 of them, or you can write down 5 of them. But I want to do this just so we can talk together and have a idea of making sure that you have something to take home with you. I know what the signs and symptoms are with depression. You don't have to guess when you leave here, because you're going to have them written down, and I'm going to say memorize them. So let's take 3 minutes and write down the 8 signs and symptoms of depression. I'm watching the clock, so we should be pretty much on time.
Remember, you can also type your responses in the chat. So
One minute.
some really good responses.
Yes, we're done. We're ready. 3 minutes are up. So how do we, what did you say, Tina? I didn't hear you.
I said, reading of the chats, there seem to be some good responses in the chat.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. We have, so I'm going to call out some to you and see if you had those on your list. And we're talking about overeating or poor appetite. I think I saw one of those. Feeling worthless. Let me see. Isolation. Sadness. Poor sleep or sleeping too much. Poor concentration. Oh, excessive guilt. That's one. Indecisiveness. Tough to make a decision. Low energy or fatigue. Lack of care about the appearance. And the last one I told you about. The main one that sometimes is a part of depression, sometimes not. Oh, okay. Alcohol or drug use, excessive alcohol or drug use. Okay. So I knew that we were on the same wavelength. I knew that you knew what depression was, like I know what depression is. So I'm glad to know that we're on the same path and we can begin to start looking at ways to help our teens. I see that we have the suicide prevention lifeline, and that's one of the things we need to keep in our homes, keep in our phone books, keeping our contacts on our phone. The suicide prevention lifeline. Make sure you write this number down. Now, I want to tell you, when I say that depression is a disease, I'm relating it to what we would normally look at if we said we had cancer. Cancer is a disease. Signs and symptoms of a disease. So that means that this disease can have some healing, can have a cure, or be rescued. That's what we're looking at. So one of the things you want to do is, when I say that statistically they talked about 1 out of 8 children having episodes of major depression. Major depression is usually something that goes on for years before help is given. And so that's a high number. 1 out of 8 teenagers had major depression. That means that most likely suicidal ideation was on their list of signs and symptoms, most likely. Because I'm talking to you about a low-grade depression, and our teens have had major depression. A low-grade depression can be where you have the signs and symptoms for 30 days or less, or 30 to 90 days or less. Major depression means you had an episode of depression that lasted 30 days, but you've had more than one episode of depression. And that's where the treatment needs to be. But sometimes with depression, we want to take our children to a therapist, a psychiatrist, and we want them to get help. I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, them can't get help by themselves. They can't get help by themselves is because their problems usually is in relationship to something. You don't have a problem that just stands alone. It's in relationship to something. And if you're a teenager, you're right. You don't have house notes, car notes, credit card bills. You don't have any of that. So we have our problems as teens. They have their problems related to something. Now, is that family problems? Is that drugs and alcohol? Is it low self-worth? Is it some of the things that we talked about just a few minutes ago? Yes, it's those things. So one of the things we have to do in our big picture, we have to stop singling out our children. When your child has a problem, guess what? You got a problem. So we can't take our child to the therapist and drop them off to the therapist, and then when the teenager tells the therapist, oh, they don't have nothing to talk about, everything is fine, then the therapy's over. But if your child has a problem and you see it as a family issue, you see it as a family problem, and everybody goes to therapy, everybody goes to the therapist the same day that the teen goes to therapy, then we can begin to work some things out. They'll listen. Teenagers will listen. They might not say anything, but believe it or not, if you have other children in the household, they know all that's going on. They know all about the depression. They know all about what you're doing. They know all about what their daddy's doing, their mama's doing, everybody's doing. So a lot of times when I want to find out what's going on in a household, and I got a teenager that's depressed, I am going to ask the children, because they're going to tell it all. They're going to give you the information you need to begin to work with the family, to start sharing their feelings. You notice that I'm saying feelings, and that's one of the areas I want you to take note of. Feelings. Most of the time, we don't want to talk about our feelings. We want to talk about the facts. We want to talk about statistics. We want to talk about list of names. We want to talk about everything else except for our feelings. And we got to get used to talking to our feelings, because that is what is going to solve some of our problems with teens in terms of them trying to kill themselves. Because see, they felt something about something. So they decided that because they feel like this, suicide is the problem solver, so they just gonna kill themselves. They don't sit down and say, well, 1 + 1 is 2, and I think I'll kill myself. No. They talk about feelings. And if you can talk about feelings with young children, you'd be surprised what you will hear as they grow and become teens. If you talk about feelings, you will always be able to talk with your child, because it's their feelings. It's your feelings. It's not something that you can use judgment on. You can't use judgment on somebody else's feelings because they belong to them. So I know I'm getting excited about this and might go off a little bit, but I want to, before we go into questions, I want to give you a list. And if you can write them down, that's fine. But if not, Sister Campbell and I have decided we're going to make a way to get you to the literature that I took some of this information from, and the statistics as well. So we're going to make a way to get this to you, and so you can have this, and because it's real simple reading, real simple to understand, and it's not real complicated. So one of the things I want to share with you, and you let me know, and sometimes you can let me know just by writing it down with your notes and taking it home and just thinking about it. That's what I mean by let me know. Now, we have, as adults, we have our wants. And our wants can be acceptance, grace, connection, companionship, success, self-determination, understanding, love, validation, and respect. That's just some of the wants. We want that as adults. We almost can't live without it. Now, what we can't live without acceptance, grace, connection, companionship, success, self-determination, understanding, love, and respect. That's what we can't live without. And I'm gonna give you the literature and the book that I got this information from. And then when we don't have these things, we don't have our wants, and we don't have what we can't live without, then we have fear. And the fear we have is rejection, judgment, disconnection, loneliness, failure, powerlessness, being misunderstood, being scorned, being invalidated, and feeling defective. Now, if that's the way we feel, and the fears we have, and some of the issues that we have, our children have also, how do you think they feel with the list I just read to you? They got a lot of feelings stuffed inside, and probably even more, because you know their feelings are going every which way when they're 12, 13 years old. So I want you to take note of that. We're going to send you this list also, and take note of it, and understand that children just don't have school problems. They just don't have problems with other children. They just don't have bullying problems. They have all the problems we have, and I'm gonna just give you a few of them. They have family problems. Teenagers have substance abuse problems. They have domestic violence problems. They have breakup problems, bullying. They got homelessness, pregnancy, conflict with parents, conflict with siblings, and school problems. So you can see when you really look at it that we have a lot going on with our teens. One thing Sister Campbell asked me to mention that I forgot, and I'm getting ready to wind down now, and that is she asked me to speak with you about oh man, just slipped my mind.
How COVID?
That's what happens when you get 66. Y'all might not feel like that, but you asked me to talk to them about
Sister Evans, if you can kind of briefly talk to them about how, if they're already depressed, how COVID interacts with that, or
oh yeah,
how COVID may cause depression.
yes, that's what it was. Thank you so much. One of the things she told me was that she asked me, what about social media? That was one piece. Social media, as well as technology, new technology. And in the literature that I've read, and what I'm going to send you, is that social media and technology is not the new fad that has led to this depressive episodes for teens. It is not. That is not it. So that's why you saw me go into all the other problems that we have as adults that teens may have also. So along with that, the COVID-19, because of the problems that we have as adults and the problems that the teens have, which are similar, don't forget, which are similar, COVID-19 is affecting teens even more. And the reason it's affecting them because a large part of family now is grandmothers and grandfathers. I mean, that has just taken off. I mean, I'm the most proud grandmother you could imagine. And I'm sure that a lot of you are too if you're grandparents. And if you died from COVID-19, it would be a total disaster for your teen or even your young adult grandchild. It would be a total disaster. So one of the things that we got to really look at is how COVID-19 is affecting our teens, and we have to not even the small children as well, but we have to look at it for our teens, because remember all the things that I listed for you that we have, they have too. They have feelings about those too. And so because those feelings, it's easy for them to go into depression, and not a low grade depression, but a major depression where they've had it for some time. And so we have to really be conscious of what is going on and not, ignore the fact that depression is live and well. And when I told you that one of the things I want to tell you though, to end, is that I want to make sure there is no doubt. This is in the literature too that you're going to get. There is no doubt there is a mental health crisis among teens and young adults right now. It's not yesterday. It's not back when technology came and social media started up. It's not last night. It's right now. And we're going to have to take extra precaution, and we're going to have to take extra steps to make sure we deal with it, because I know it's hard enough to deal with our own problems. So it's tough to deal with your problems, and your teen got the same kind of problems. But my recommendation is, if you spend a lot of time talking to your child about feelings, you will find out exactly what's going on with them. And when you go to treatment, and you go to treatment, you go together. You don't just throw the teen in treatment and say, okay, it's your problem. Because see, if you were to tell me to go to, if I'm in your family and you tell me to go to treatment, automatically I'm thinking it's my problem. I'm not thinking we got a problem. I'm thinking I got a problem. So that's what they say. I got a problem. And who do you know wants to be the problem of the family? Not a teen, that's for sure. So thank you so much for listening. Sister Campbell and I are going to get you that literature that I promised. And we're going to take some questions now, Sister Campbell.
Yes, there are a lot of questions that we have in the going on in the chat, and you address the social media, but there's a question about this suicide. Is suicide being impacted by the fact that there are a lot of teenagers that have a game going on about suicide?
Have a game? You said
Game.
a game?
They're engaging in games.
Yeah, but not. I would say not African Americans. We don't. As a group, I'm saying as a group. Now, I'm not saying 3 or 4 people might not have tried it, but as a group of people, we don't kill ourselves in games. We don't play like that. We're not the kind of people who are saying, well, I'm gonna hang myself by a door and cut off my breath and then bring myself back to life. We don't do that, not as a group. And the next question, was that sufficient, or should I get more literature on that, or how do they want me to handle that one, Sister Campbell?
We're going to open up, and if you have questions, the person that answered that question, please, I think it was Sister Loretta, would you please say, do you need more information on that, or did that answer your concern?
Sister Campbell, I do need more information on that.
Okay.
My nephew actually attends a predominantly white Christian academy, and that's something that he's experiencing.
Okay, well, we will make sure.
So I'm trying to see what would make you want to be a part of that group.
I couldn't
Would you
hear.
like to address that, Sister Evans? She
I
says
couldn't
that her nephew goes to a school that's predominantly white, and they have this kind of behavior that some of the teens are engaging in, and she's trying to understand what would make him want to be a part of engaging in that behavior.
Well, it could be peer pressure or just wanting to, fit in.
But
what I'm saying, as a whole, we're not going to just, you're not going to hear about that in Southwestern High School in Flint, because we don't do that as a group of people, is what I'm trying to say. Now, if he's with another group that does that, then maybe his self-esteem is low. Maybe you can ask him. See, I think that coming right out and asking kids what the problem is the way to go. And I think that if Sister Loretta, I think you said her name.
Yes.
If you ask him why is he doing this, he'll probably tell you. And maybe, he needs some more activities. Maybe he's getting lonely at the school. It's kind of lonely being the only Black person in a white school. It's lonely being 2 or 3 Black people in an all-white school. You trying to fit in.
Yeah,
Trying to fit in.
Went into panic mode, and then his parents were not able to do anything.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up, Sister Loretta, so we can't really hear you. But what we can do is we can make sure that we provide you with the information that you need, and then if you need to talk to me or to Sister Evans, I'm sure that we would be willing to on offline have a conversation with you about it, and if that will be sufficient for you at this point in time, we would be more than happy to do that. Then there's one last question that we will, it says, I would like to know your thoughts about the hangings that have occurred since the onset of COVID, and if you think they were suicides.
Um,
You can feel free not to.
no, I know. I was just gonna say, you asked me, would I think they were suicides? And I was going to say, anytime you engage in suicidal behavior is suicidal, even though it's accidental, because 80% of the people who kill themselves do it accidentally. So it is a suicide. I wouldn't say that you were playing around and you accidentally killed yourself. No matter what, it's suicidal. So I definitely think it was suicide. Now, maybe it wasn't something, like sometimes we say, we'll look at the youngster and we say, oh, he was such a wonderful guy. He laughed all the time. He played around all the time. He was excellent in school and everything was wonderful, but he killed himself. Whether he killed himself accidentally or on purpose, he killed himself, and it was a lot to that. You don't engage in suicidal behavior if you're not planning to kill yourself. Now, maybe you think it won't happen, but you don't engage in that kind of behavior without knowing you're going to kill yourself eventually.
I'm going to end with one last question. And Sister Nettie Johnson, I believe, it has a question that she would like to ask. Could you unmute, Sister, and ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, and thank you. And a wonderful discussion and a very important topic. My question has to do with the shift that I think many of us are seeing regarding how younger generations tend to be much more open to therapy. You talked a lot about talking about feelings and how, I'm in my 50s, and I know that I was raised to kind of suck it up, buttercup. As it relates to mental health kind of things, we really didn't talk about it. I attend therapy kind of preventatively. And when I talk about it with people that are older than me, sometimes they look like, oh my gosh, something's wrong with that. Whereas when I look at some of my nieces and nephews that are millennials, they go to therapy like some people my age may go to the hairdresser. They don't see a problem with it. And I wanted to kind of see how is that going into teenagers. I think that a concern that I have is that sometimes when we have people of my generation or older interfacing with teenagers that are very talk conscious, if we take our biases and we don't want to take them to therapy because of how we view it, it may be something that they would be extremely open to given the way younger generations view that. So I kind of wanted to put that out there. I don't necessarily think that young people, if you say, hey, how about let's talk about it and do therapy, that they would necessarily see like, oh, something's wrong with me. And I think that's a bias that we have, and that sometimes we can block them getting some help that they really need, especially when we may not be as equipped to talk it out. Can you share your thoughts in that around that area?
Well, I was thinking that when you talk about going to therapy, some of your young adults are now going to therapy, but teens are seeing that if it's a problem and they're having a problem, that it's a blame kind of thing, that you're blaming it on me. And that's when they don't want to go to therapy. If you go there as a family and you get through that piece, then they'll probably just go individually and want to solve their problems. But right now, what we're looking at is that teens are not going to therapy. So we have to talk more. We really do. We really have to start talking with our teens more. And I know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So ma'am, what is the shift that we need to make? Because I think the question that I really have is that I do agree that we need to talk more, but And maybe I'm just speaking from what I've seen, and I'd appreciate if other people can say that. I find that a lot of times when we talk more, when we're not equipped, and particularly in the body of Christ, a lot of times what people are hearing are, okay, well, you just need to pray about it and trust God. Or, just let God work that out. Like, I think that sometimes when young people are coming and they have an issue, because we're not equipped to actually have those conversations, that sometimes what they hear is not what they need. So then they won't talk more and we're not getting them to the root. So what is the shift, particularly as it relates in Christian counseling, that needs to happen so that we get our young people to somebody that can talk to them in a way that they will understand and they will, does that make sense? Because
that makes a lot of sense. But it's like I said, I know it seems kind of maybe a little petty, but feelings is where you're going to get at the problems. Because see, if I tell you how I feel, what can you do about it? Nothing. It's my feelings.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you tell me, like just now, you told me how you felt. You didn't tell me how you think. You didn't tell me about your intellect. You told me how you felt. I can't do anything about your feelings but listen to them if I want to. If I don't want to, I don't have to listen to them. But I'm just saying that the shift is going to be from talking about facts, talking about statistics, talking about things that people that when you talk about things that I can come back on, like I said, like if I blamed you for something, you could say, well, I didn't do that. I did this. But feelings, you can't do that. Feelings are yours. They belong to you.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
if that's the way you feel, they can do something about those feelings. You can do something about those feelings if you want to. If you don't want to, the person still has their feelings. That's what I'm saying. We have to get more into feelings. And we live in a society that don't want to deal with feelings. We don't even want to deal with anger. So people just kill people. And anger is a feeling way up there on the top 3 lists. But we don't want to deal with anger. So people say, okay, you don't want to deal with it, I'll show you. So we got to deal with feelings. I know it sounds kind of, oh boy, you're so emotional, Marjorie. But yes, I am. I'm very emotional.
Okay.
Some feelings.
Well, thank you so very much for your input, Sister Nettie, and thank you very much, Sister Evans, for being with us today. We're about to run out of time. So I want again to say thank you. I hope that some of the information that she shared will help those out there who may be struggling with some issues on how to talk to their teens, and keeping in mind that feelings is one of the keys that you want to use. And there's one of the things that she said is Sister Evans kept talking about was research. I want to give you these facts and figures. That's research. Statistics is research. And one of the partners that we have through all of us, we're fortunate enough to be able to access research and information that will be vital to helping us with ourselves, our families, our friends, our church members, our community, to try to begin to help make our communities and the individuals in our communities whole again. And so thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it. We will go through the questions, and we can provide information for you. If you want more information from us, please leave a phone number or an email where we can contact you, and we will be more than happy to do that. And we will be posting this information on YouTube and with a list of resources. These would be more national resources because we can't get down into all the local resources, but the national resources will be able to refer you to those local resources in your community. And and remember, you can always contact me through the National Baptist Convention, that I will be more than happy to provide answers. And those that I don't know, I do have a wealth of resources that I can reach out to. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to you joining us in November with our next session. Yes, ma'am.
Hold on. I want to hit a couple of these questions really, really quickly because there was a few others early in the chat. I know we're up at the end. I'm just going to read through them very quickly, and these are going to be posed to both you and Sister Marjorie if y'all want to tag team really quickly.
Wonderful. We have time. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We're only 12:01, and we'll give it about 2 or 3 more minutes.
Okay.
The first question: how do you address teenage depression as a family and a broken family? Which one of you ladies wants to address that one, or perhaps both of you?
I will let Sister Marjorie go first.
Well, I don't see families as broken. And a family depends on who lives in the same household or who the family says is family. So it could be all cousins in a household. That would be a family. So is that
I think
Yes, ma'am.
needed, or Sister Campbell, you want to add something to that?
I think that again, it's going to go back to what we've always been saying. Again, a family is who that person says is their family, as well as their family of orientation. And it's going to be up to each one of those people in that family to want to be able to share their feelings and to talk about their feelings. You can't, as she said, you cannot force anybody to, but if you still have a relationship enough with the person that's outside of the home to want to have that conversation, or the people that are in that home to care enough about each other still to want to hold that family together, to want to help that individual, to the individuals in the family to become whole, then you just ask, you put it out there, this is an option. We have an option to go to therapy and to be able to help each other. We can go as a family and we can go as individuals, so that we are being able to heal ourselves while we're healing our family.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Second question, I'll go quickly, and I think there's 2 more after that. I'm trying to scroll through the chat to make sure we haven't missed any.
Yes, there were a lot in there.
How can we work to break the cycle in the Black household and the Black church, which sometimes leads to a lot of the depression? So the cycle of behaviors that happen in our culture, of our homes, and our churches, what can we do to break the cycle? Because sometimes we feed into the depression.
Well, I think one of the things is what we were doing here today, helping our family members, our church members, especially our church leadership, understand what the signs and the symptoms are for depression, that it is prevalent among young people as well as seniors, that the young people have the same issues that they're dealing with, maybe on a smaller scale than we are, but that they're dealing with those issues. So identifying what the signs and symptoms are, reaching out to a trusted partner in the community, be it a community organization or be it a physician, who can make referrals to people to physicians or professionals who understand our culture and are willing to work with us within that framework. So having a list that we can once we identify signs and symptoms, and once we see that someone may need help, being able to get them the help that they need, partnering with national organizations or local organizations, again, like all of us, who can get us the materials that we need, opening up our congregation to be able to bring those people in to do presentations. There's also a wonderful training tool that you can use for members of your congregation with the National Behavioral Society. It's called Mental Health First Aid. I'm sorry, I almost drew a blank. It's called Mental Health First Aid, where they can come in and do trainings in your churches to begin to break down those barriers, to begin to get rid of those stigmas that are in our homes, especially prevalent in the African American community and the African American church, and thinking that if you seek help, you're saying that you don't trust God to heal you. So kind of being able to reconcile those two together to be able to get the help that you need.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, thank you. Our last question that I saw in the chat was about where Sister Marjorie was talking about African American men eating themselves to death. And we know as part of our Hope ministry, we have a nutritionist on our team. We know that we have a health coach on our team. We talk a lot about the things culturally that we do in terms of our diet and our eating, how we have to make those changes. So the person asked, how can someone eat themselves to death? And I think you addressed that earlier, but I will
Yeah.
give you an opportunity if you want to elaborate. And of
Yes.
course, I mentioned our Hope team has resources available to help people look at healthier eating to prevent some of these illnesses and diseases, the high blood pressure, the diabetes, or even to help lessen the effects of them if someone already has them.
Yes. The way that I see it is that when you eat yourself to death, you 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 really kill yourself with food. The foods that you are putting inside of yourself is going to eventually take you over. And high blood pressure and diabetes are two of the main signs that that's happening. And you know, from diabetes and from high blood pressure, we're talking about renal failure, heart failure, congestive heart failure. We're talking about many, many diseases, and that's what I was alluding to, many diseases that could kill you. So I call it, I made that up, eating yourself to death to get attention. I made it so that, you know, I got her attention when I said they eat themselves to death.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is Black men don't usually kill themselves, is what my point was. And how they do it, even though I was talking about suicide all across the board, I was saying that instead of putting a gun to their head, they put a fork to their mouth,
Mm-hmm.
is basically what I was saying. And eventually that kills them because they develop diabetes, high blood pressure, renal failure, all the rest of the things that I just listed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I sometimes I put things together where people have, it's nothing, I believe there's nothing new under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And I put things together to get people's attention so they can begin to start asking questions and understanding what I'm talking about. So when I say, you know, they eat themselves to death, then I'm trying to get your attention to say, hey, we're taking food and we're killing ourselves with it. That's a suicide also, especially if you know it. You know that the food you're eating will eventually kill you. If you're 100 and some pounds when you were 20 years old and now you 300 or 400 pounds, something happened.
Mm-hmm.
Something happened. And I'm just very glad to hear you when you said y'all have a health team, you have a nutritionist. I mean, out of everything we're talking about, that's one of the main things, because overeating is one of the signs of depression.
Nutrition, yes.
Yes.
So,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
nutritionist.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was fabulous. I want to remind everybody of our National Suicide Prevention Lifeline phone number. It is available in English and Spanish. It is available 24 hours a day. That number is 1-800-273-8255. That's important to have. Let's not take it for granted when we see depression in our teenagers. Let's not blow it off when somebody exhibits suicidal tendencies. Let's continue to trust the scientists, trust the doctors, trust the social workers. We're still going to trust God because we know He's the one that places those people in our path. Faith and science can go together. Here on the screen, you see behind me about All of Us. Again, remember, All of Us research, the future of health begins with you. That's an initiative of the National Baptist Convention USA in collaboration with the National Institutes of Health. They are looking for 1 million participants. It might not affect our current health, but it will affect medications and treatments for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. I want to again address our convention leadership, Dr. Jerry Young, our convention president, Dr. Alvin Love, the chair of our Federal Faith-Based Development Initiative, and Dr. Michael Miner, our national director of the NBC USA liaison to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Our upcoming activities for HOPE, which is our health ministry for National Baptists. Number one, We have ongoing our Let's Move National Baptist, which is led by Sister Nettie Johnson. It is an ongoing effort to get us moving. Sister Nettie tells us all the time, God designed our bodies to move. Our next initiative, Sickle Cell Disease Awareness Month, which is this month. We already did a great webinar about it about a week ago. It's still available on our website as well as on YouTube. And then, of course, our suggested health and wellness webinar overview that we'll have on the 15th of October at 6:30 is going to talk about the observances that are coming up for 2021. Remember our website, www.hopenbc.com, our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, @Hope_NBCUSA, and of course, our YouTube channel. Remember, our health observance for September is National Childhood Obesity Awareness Month, Sickle Cell Disease Awareness Month, which we place a tremendous emphasis on, and prostate cancer awareness. October health observances are going to be posted very soon on our webpage. Again, we're thankful for Sister Bettina Campbell for facilitating this. We are thankful for Sister Marjorie Evans for being our guest today. I'm going to bring Sister Bettina back up again if she has any comments, and then we will close it out.
My only comment would be that thank you all for listening, but also thank God for Sister Lottie Minor.
We have to thank God for the technology, and thank God for Dr. Minor, because it takes two with the help of the Lord. We are a 3-strand cord in this house. So, and we thank you, Sister Bettina. You are a blessing to our team. We appreciate you and your expertise and all the wonderful resources that you brought to us. Sister Marjorie, thank you as well. You have blessed us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you, all of our panelists, from our Hope team who are on, all of our attendees who have joined us. We thank you for taking time out of your day. We're going to go ahead and sign off of YouTube and sign off of Facebook at this time. Those who are viewing us through Zoom, if you will just stay on for just a moment, we would appreciate that. So give us just a second to stop our live stream.